Hi there, this is Solitary Ronin from Solitary Ronin Films, and welcome to another episode of Consecutive Criterions, where I go through my Criterion collection and pick out some films that run in consecutive numerical spine number order. Again, I'm not completing Criterion and never will be, otherwise this will just be one video. So today we're going to talk about numbers 656, 657 and 658. So we've got two westerns by the same director, and then a really unique film of the American New Wave in the late 60s, early 70s. So we'll start with a Region A Blu-ray and 656, and it's Delmare Dave's Jubal, starring Glenn Ford, Ernest Borgnine, Charles Bronson and Rod Steiger. From 1956, 101 minutes, and it's just a wonderful little psychological western, as with all Criterions. You get a nice booklet with essays and images from the film. Jack Elam, the wonderful Jack Elam, is also in the film. Glenn Ford is playing his thoroughly decent persona in this one, where he's hired by Ernest Borgnine. As a hired hand, it kind of goes up the ladder and becomes foreman, and he also may or may not have special feelings for Ernest Borgnine's wife, and this rankles with Rod Steiger, and it's all done in that 50s Technicolor. It's almost more colour than colour, and it's in CinemaScope, so it's big wide open spaces, even though it's really a psychological western, all about what's going on in these people's heads. Again, you have the joy of seeing Rod Steiger in a western. Again, I'm not quite sure how many westerns Rod Steiger was in. Obviously he was in Once Upon a Time in a Revolution, or Fistful of Dollars, or Duck-You-Sucker. As far as American westerns, I'm not actually sure. If you do know, answers in a postcard. But Rod Steiger is always a treat, giving another subtle and quiet performance. And an early Charles Bronson role as one of the supporting actors, and Glenn Ford again has the picture of decency. But then 657 on Region B Blu-ray, not Region Blue, on B-Ray, from 1957, it's Delmare Dave's 310 to Yuma. This one's been in Region B in the UK for forever, almost. And the story's really simple, but it's so good that it was remade with Russell Crowe and Christian Bale, and it's actually pretty good. Again, we've got Glenn Ford and Van Heflin this time, but Glenn Ford is the outlaw, unlike in Jubal. And again, it's very simple. Van Heflin is taking back Glenn Ford to face justice, to go to prison, but Glenn Ford has some friends that don't want that to happen. And it really is, again, it's another, for the Western, which is obviously the great outdoors, this is another one that's, most of it's set indoors, as the desperation of Heflin to get Glenn Ford on the train. And again, as I said, it's a really simple economic story that's so good that even a remake managed to do it very well. This one's in black and white. It's 92 minutes long. Again, Delmare Daves is never really going to be mentioned amongst the big names in cinema, the big names in westerns. But again, he was just another one of those guys that just did a lot of really solid films, really enjoyable films, economic films. And he must have been doing something right, because we're still talking about his films all these years later. So that's Jubal and 310 to Yuma. Both I would highly recommend if you like westerns. If you don't like westerns, maybe not. And this is a Region A Blu-ray, spine number 658, from 1969, and it's a film of its time, but it's a fascinating little film nonetheless, and it is medium cool, directed by Haskell Wexler, who of course is more famous for being a cinematographer. Obviously, I love his work with John Sayles on Matewan, where Wexler, who does have a political bent, made Matewan, which was a $3 million film, look absolutely golden and make it look like old photographs. So this is a film he directs and shoots himself. It's 110 minutes from 1969, and it's really unique. I think there's not too many films like Medium Cool where it's partially a documentary about the political unrest, but it has fiction mixed in with it, as Robert Forster, who's a cameraman trying to cover the events of the Democratic National Convention in Chicago, as his day gets worse and more fraught with danger and tension. Again, it's hard to describe. It's a film that you really just need to see and experience. Again, it's stacked with extras. There's a Eureka Masters of Cinema Blu-ray as well. It's just a wonderful film, even though, again, as I said, it's quite hard to describe. Again, a film completely of its time, but not in a bad way, just as far as, near the birth of New Hollywood, the Easy Rider generation. This is a 4K transfer approved by Haskell Wexler. There's two audio commentaries, one featuring Wexler, actor Mariana Hill, and another featuring historian Paul Cronin. There's a new interview with Haskell Wexler, extended excerpts from Look Out Haskell It's Real, a documentary by Cronin about the making of Medium Cool, featuring interviews with Wexler, Golding, actors Werner Bloom, Peter Boners, and Robert Forster, Chicago historian Studs Terkel, and others. Excerpts from Sooner or Later, Cronin's documentary about Harold Blankenship, who plays Harold in the film. Medium Cool Revisited, a new half-hour video by Wexler about the Occupy movement's protests against the 2012 NATO summit in Chicago. So it's a really wonderful release. As I said, it's a new restored 4K transfer on this Region A Blu-ray, and it really looks quite wonderful. So I'd highly recommend Medium Cool, even though I can't really explain what the film's about. But it does actually remind you how great Robert Forster was, and it's such a shame that he kind of disappeared for a certain number of years until Tarantino, and one of the good things he's done in his career, and cast Forster and Jackie Brown alongside Pam Grier, of course. So that's 3 more consecutive criterions, more of a niche, few films, a couple of westerns, and almost as avant-garde as American cinema gets, perhaps, with Medium Cool. But so again, if you don't like westerns and you don't like American films of that period of being unpredictable and independent and political and challenging, then you might not get much from these 3 films. But if you do like those sort of things, these are wonderful examples of such. So thanks so much for watching. Please let me know if you have seen Jubal, 310 to Yuma and Medium Cool, and what you think of them, and hopefully you'll join me again for more of my consecutive criterions. This is Solitude Ronin from Solitude Ronin Films, saying farewell.